Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about Abyss of Legends and my kind of impressions and experience as I was running through it and clearing it. So we did manage to clear it over the weekend. It didn't take us months or years or whatever Kabam Mike said it would. And there are fair few players who have explored it already. There was a bunch before me. Also, shout out to Legacy for finishing first on the YouTube. That was definitely a great push he did. And yeah, all of that being said, we can kind of like now go over the things one by one. So we're gonna start first things first about the nodes. And I will be making several videos in these Abyss series. We're going to be discussing the best champions for each path, which paths are more suitable if you're missing one of the core champions, so on and so forth. So there's definitely going to be a couple more videos coming on the series. But first thing, let's discuss all 7 of the Abyss nodes. So Brand of Abyss 1, the Evade. The Evade, we kind of had gotten used to it from Labyrinth. It's annoying. It doesn't make the fight more challenging. It just essentially costs you a couple dozen revives as you're exploring it, because opponent is inevitably gonna evade at an inconvenient moment and you're gonna get smacked in the face and you're gonna die when you otherwise wouldn't have. And it's annoying. It could be worse, but it serves no difference in terms of fighting and the way you approach the fights. The only difference there is that you will randomly die because the way it caught you off guard. Good instance was, for instance, Doom, and when you play Doom's rotation, you basically push opponent to level 3, then drop your level 1, and then gain 2 bars of power and drop your level 2. Now, if opponent evaded Doom's level 1 first hit, then you finish your level 1 animation and realize that you're in thick water because opponent still has 3 bars of power because of that evade, and they just drop a level 3 on you. And that happened, like, I am not exaggerating, at least like 10 times throughout the run. So that is an annoying bit. But other than that, it's nothing too big. Now, Abyss Brand 2 would be that they have 10% chance to stun and 100% chance to stun on special attacks. Also, the damage cap is 85k. Now, this one was more annoying because when you made a mistake, quite often they just stun trained you to the death and that was it. If you got tagged once, for most part, or at least half of the time, I would say, because when they tag you, they do a full combo. Most of the time it means they have 5 chances of a 10% chance to stun you, and then if they do stun you, then they drop a special attack, and so basically you're kind of dead half of the time. And yeah, if you get clipped by a special attack, then you're dead. Damage cap 85k, I really don't like it, especially because there are not many champions at current game level who can hit that damage cap. None of the most used champions, which are the 4 horsemen currently, Aegon, Nick Fury, Human Torch, and Dr. Doom, can really hit even that 85k cap, and there are only kind of like a select few champions in the game at all who can reach that damage consistently and constantly. And that just kind of like seems very uncreative way how to gimp Proxima, Sunspot, and a couple more endgame characters. And I wish they didn't do that. I don't think there's need for it, especially to how specific the fights and the paths are. And for some paths, even let's say if you can bring in, I don't know, Sunspot or Proxima, you might not even have a chance to do that because of how many counters you need to find for how many different fights. So that, in my opinion, node should be completely scrapped. It serves no good purpose other than gimping a couple of endgame champions, because think about it, how many champions are at a quality level that they could be used in Abyss with somewhat decent utility and able to generate that amount of damage? There are literally only like Proxima and Sunspot that come to like on the top of my mind. Obviously there are other champions who occasionally can hit that mark as well, but all in all I think it's absolutely unnecessary and just feels cheap, because Kabam is creating these champions who can produce that great damage, and there is zero content in the game whatsoever for a really amped up Sunspot and for a really amped up Proxima Midnight Shine. Think that is a cheap, nasty thing to do. They need to fix that immediately, or at least going forward forget that kind of stupid damage caps, because they don't really do anything for the content and they wouldn't make much of a difference to begin with. And if they want to gimp some specific champions, they can do that, but they don't have to flat out put a damage cap on it. Now the third mark is special attack 3 is unlocked and they have a lot of attack rating, that's whatever. Mark number 4 is do not go in a fight with class disadvantage, basically, which is kind of okay. I agree with that, except it's nothing kind of like too abysmal. And mark 5 and 6 is basically your enrage timer mechanic, and mark 7 basically is version of brute force, just you losing your charges. Either way, so as far as this enrage mechanic goes, I think this is by far the worst metric Kabam had used. The initial enrage system was good enough, in my opinion, and should not have been changed. Now, let me explain this, because this enrage tactic by default pretty much disqualify many of champions from entering Abyss and being effective in the first place. So here a certain value get placed on what is the damage you can do to your opponent per hit. And we have a lot of champions who can amass the hit combos, hit counter extremely quickly. For instance, Carnage, right? Carnage is a great damage output champion. He performed wonderfully in many of Labyrinth of Legends fights, and he set, I believe, some speed records or whatever, but he does generate a lot of hits because he continuously spams his special attacks. Special attacks are multi-hit, and basically he lands 500 hits when some champions would only land 200 hits in the same amount of time. Now, Carnage clearly has a higher damage output because if he's able to take down a Labyrinth of Legends opponent faster than anybody else, or one of the fastest times anyways, then that is a champion with a greater damage output, and a champion that logically should have an advantage in content like this because of his great damage output. Now, the fact that your damage output now, for whatever stupid reason, is measured by the amount of hits you land on opponent automatically disqualifies Carnage. It disqualifies pretty much, let's say, Blade and his level 2 spam, or whichever champion quickly amounts a lot of hits. And I think it's a very stupid metric. I think that is kind of like A, the least creative, and B, least accurate timer on a fight. This is the first place ever that uses a hit count as in like your fight timer. Like, imagine if your AQ, for instance, would be measured. You can land 50 hits on opponent, and if you don't kill opponent in 50 hits, that's it. You time out. Don't think it's good. I don't think it works. I don't think it works here, and I don't think it works anywhere else in the game as well. Enrage timer should have been time-based. Details of how these timers are set and how they depend on your ratings and rankings or whatever, we can leave that up to discussion, but measuring the length of the fight and your fight allowance based on how many hits you land an opponent is utterly stupid and abysmal. By default, putting champions with 6 and 7 hit combos in disadvantage quite often, just because you can generate more hits. Champions who do spam a lot of hits with their level 1s, level 2s get slight disadvantage, and champions who do not hit opponents often will obviously produce great results. Now, one important thing to note is that there's no limber. There's no limber made this content a lot easier. Arguably, many of the fights at their base are a lot easier than Labyrinth is. Not having to worry about limber is fantastic. It lets you include many different more champions in game, and it kind of like makes it better. So there are some upsides. Not having limber is fantastic, and the rage timer based on hits is absolutely garbage. Hit cap still sucks. So now that I have said that I believe this Abyss of Legends fight hit metric based on challenger rating and giving you a set amount of hits is stupid. I just want to make sure everybody is absolutely clear on it. I think it sucks. I think it's the stupidest thing anybody could come up with when it comes to some sort of timing of the fights. And I think they should immediately redo it, or at the very least never ever visit this idea again in the future, because it doesn't work here, wouldn't work anywhere else in the game. It sucks. It makes many champions automatically by default disadvantaged, and they should fire whoever figured it would be a good idea. Okay, so let's go over a couple of the fights now. And now that we're going to go to the fights, I'm just going to quickly pop in the map here. And we're going to go over a couple of the more annoying fights. So we have Luke Cage. Luke Cage is an extremely tricky fight, and what's worse, you have to fight it early on, so your A-gun's going to be ramped up. And what's also bad, you need to fight it 3 times. So Luke Cage is one of the more kind of skill-intensive fights. I do suggest for everybody to kind of practice before you start putting in your resources. Now, there are champions like She-Hulk and Stealthsuit Spidey who will do fantastic. I believe Spider-Gwen would do excellent as well. However, you can also use just your regular A-gun and rely on his kind of like heavy intercepts, because if you mess up, you still have the combo shield active, you can get the damage boost, and it typically kind of works out. Additionally, my advice is if you do the heavy intercept thing with A-gun, try to save up to your level 3, because then if it goes kind of like pots up and if your heavy doesn't intercept or it doesn't land and he's about to punch you, you can drop your level 3, stun the opponent, land your full combos on him, and then try again after the level 3 stun expires. We'll definitely make a video on how to deal with this guy with like A-gun and a couple other counters, because I think it is one of the more annoying fights. But all in all, it's not like anything completely awful. It's just tricky and skill intensive. Now we have Massacre. Massacre fight basically is a fight where you have to continuously hit opponents' block. You have to fight this guy twice, and the idea is you need to balance hitting him with hitting his block. The problem with this fight is because Kabam is somewhat useless when it comes to fixing the opponent launches their special attack while you're hitting their block thing, and I definitely lost probably altogether at least like 5-6 revives to that bug, as in like I am hitting Massacre's block and he just randomly drops a special in my face, and that definitely did not feel great. Other than that, it's just a fight where you kind of need to be aggressive, where you do not need to stress about hitting his block much more than you need to stress about not getting cornered, remaining aggressive, taking the open hits as you can, because the more hits you have landed on Massacre, the higher is going to be the block damage, so it all kind of evens out. And that is that point. So I think it's also not the worst fight, but it is quite annoying when he lands that special in your face as you're hitting in the block. Now, another fight that is quite annoying is the Green Goblin, and basically unless his armor broken, he gets massive resistances, physical resistance, energy resistance, armor, so on and so forth. So basically you kind of need to make sure you have an armor break champion with you, or something like Nick Fury, because Nick Fury still works fantastically with his bleeds, and that is who I used. But I assume if you have an armor break champion, that does basically make sure opponents consistently under armor break, that would help in this fight quite a bit as well, especially because armor break is a debuff that would work well with Despair Mastery, mitigating his regen, so on and so forth. So that is a fight to be aware of. That is an annoying fight. And another quite annoying fight is this Punisher. Now, he doesn't really technically have anything too special. You just need to make sure that you have a champion that has at least 2 or more unique buffs on often. The problem is the block damage. The block damage kind of gets annoying from his level 1s and level 2s, so that is the fight where you definitely want to be boosted, where you definitely want to be healed up, because you will be taking a lot of block damage, and it is in fact extremely annoying and frustrating. Now, one of the kind of harder mid fights here is Gladiator Hulk, and he is tricky because you cannot deal much damage to him with your regular hits, so you kind of have to rely on damage over time effects. So that basically means you're Nick Fury or Human Torch. But there's also the fact that whenever he pushes you down to 20% of the health, his signature ability activates. So he's either gonna start healing, or he's either gonna get Fury. Now, there is a way how to use it to your advantage, obviously, and that is to reverse that heal. So a perfectly viable strategy, and the one I used second time around, was I simply brought in Human Torch, placed a bunch of Incinerates, let him hit my block till he chipped me down to 20%, hoped for heal to activate, reversed as much of it as I could. It still took a fair amount of tries, but it at least wasn't like too long or frustrating. And aside from that, we also have Red Skull, and Red Skull is just long. Basically, you either need to learn how to evade Red Skull's level 2 and then continuously push him past 2 bars of power, or you just need to kind of like stay in your lane, keep him at just below and 2 bars of power, and then he's gonna throw his level 1, and then you immediately push him past 1 bar of power, and then you're basically just gonna deal 50% of your original amount of damage, and you can fight him kind of as normal. It's just gonna take double the amount of time. So it's an annoying fight, it's a long fight, it's not a hard fight. Unfortunately, obviously, because of this enrage timer mechanic, you're gonna have to use some revives on him. Now he can be cheesed with like Ronan, and Dr. Doom does well against him because he can keep him at high power as well, but he is one of the chunky lands, one of the 5.6 million or 5.8 million lands, so that fight definitely takes a long time. You have to do it 3 times and it's really annoying. Aside from that, there isn't anything kind of like too tragic on the map, especially if you have somewhat decent answers to it. Captain Marvel movie is an annoying fight as well because you just die. That's it. Like you get too much power, which you will because you get power gain buffs and whatnot, and then you just take a lot of degen damage and you die quickly. That is a really cheap and annoying fight. And obviously Collector is always fun and interactive. Apparently somebody from Kabam said that a skilled player should be able to solo it. I'm gonna believe it when I see it. I don't think I would expect anybody to actually solo that fight, because those unstoppables and everything else do seem fairly random, fairly annoying, plus the level specials to evade are extremely tricky. Now, I'm not saying they're not possible to evade. What I'm saying is that the likelihood that you're gonna mess out on evading at least one of these special attacks in a fight that has like 4 million health is extremely large. So it does feel cash grabby. The easiest way is just to take an A-gun, go Hakuna Matata, start the fight with heavy attack, get hit, get the Furies, deal as much damage as you can, and that's be done. Now, again, some people think that it's better to fully heal up your A-gun and then do as much damage as you can. I personally just prefer to use 40% revives. I thought it probably does work out cheaper. Either way, if you have A-gun, it's probably one of the better ways how to deal with this guy. If you do not have A-gun, I don't even know, honestly, but we probably will figure out some decent options and answers for this guy. And yeah. So that is as far as it goes for the opponents in Abyss. Now when it comes to health pools seemed small, I'll be honest. For the most part, health pools didn't seem that impressive. I'm going to put it like this. When Labyrinth of Legends came out, 1.5 and 3.4 million health, when you only had one rank 4 5-star or maxed out 4 stars, definitely seemed a lot bigger than the 2.6 and 5.8 or whatever do seem right now. So health pools themselves are fine, are smaller than I thought they would be. Not a problem there. The problem is that stupid enrage mechanic. And again, there are a couple of extremely silly fights. One that I wanted to mention that is extremely pointless fight is the Karnak one, because basically in that fight both champions are power locked, and parry and dexterity doesn't work, but it doesn't matter because you push Karnak to a corner and just start spamming heavy attacks, and that's it. You literally spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however many attempts you need just spamming heavy attack with one hand and then yawning with the other one. I think whoever designed that fight is a bit of a idiot. Not much else I can say about it. Opponents power locked, heavy spamming corner, that's like 1 + 1 equals boring. And it seems just kind of like a pointless fight, to be honest. Same as the Bishop one, man. The Bishop is abusable as hell. Like, you just make him kill himself. But I can kind of understand Bishop if you don't have a counter. Now with Karnak, any champion that can repeatedly launch heavy attacks in the corner, man, and you're sorted. It's pointless as it comes, and it's again kind of like you pay a toll with that revive or 2 or however many you need to take him down depending on your champions. Right, when it comes to the best champions for Abyss, obviously we all know that Dr. Doom, Human Torch, Nick Fury and Aegon's like the perfect team. The 5th spot would be reserved for path 3 and 4, either for dealing with Havoc or for dealing with Killmongers. And other than that, it does seem like the content's pretty much tuned for those 4 champions. I'm going to make a separate video talking about the four horsemen, why they are so great, and where they excel, so on and so forth. So that's going to be a separate video. But now, overall idea about Abyss of Legends. It did not live up to the expectation I had set to it. I did remember Labyrinth with a lot more fear in my heart when it initially came out, because again, it was a lot bigger mountain to climb than Abyss seemed to be right now. And that is kind of annoying, because this is the content that we had been waiting for years now. This is the content that was supposed to make us go, oh my god, how can you do this? And then eventually after months figure it out or whatever. It wasn't at all. Fact of the matter is, majority of the fights in Abyss of Legends would be easy, and I mean easy, one-shots if it wouldn't be for a stupid kebab metric of die now button. And that makes the content feel A, a rip-off from Labyrinth, B, a cheap, nasty, off-brand rip-off, because in Labyrinth, initially you at least kind of like still died a lot, not just from the enrage. You quite often, even with 4-star champions, didn't reach the enrage because of the opponents were hitting harder, there were evades, some of the fights were harder, so on and so forth. Now here, it didn't feel nowhere near as challenging. And I'll put it like that, like this, right? I don't even think this is skill-intensive content. I don't think it's cheap because you have to revive, because Kabam tells you that it's time to die because of an enraged timer's bullshit thing, right? Other than that, it's not a skill-intensive content. 6.2, 6.3 is miles more skill-intensive. 100%. It's so much more easier than 6.2 and 6.3 when it comes to nodes and when it comes to fights. It's not even serious. So the base idea for Abyss right now is have the 4 champions, have your Human Torch, have your Nick Fury, have your Doctor Doom, have your Aegon, and the content's gonna be easy. You just have to pay your way through it. And that's why I felt unsatisfied for the most part when I finished it, because I did have fun in a couple of fights, but for the vast majority of the fights I was just annoyed that I was told to die now, even though I was perfectly fine handling the fight and everything was going fine, and opponent is, I don't know, 1/3 of the health down or halfway down, and then I just die. And these fights weren't even hard. Like, you amp up Aegon, you just smack him, right? Or Human Torch against Mystic, wonderful. The longer fight goes, they just melt away. Nick Fury and Silent Bleed damage, whatever. If you have the right champions, it's not hard content. It's definitely, aside from a couple of fights, okay, I'll put it like that, like Luke Cage and a few other fights, tricky. Most of the fights is just about having the right champion and having the units, revives, or money. It's not like in 6.2 where you have to think your outs, your strategies, find ways how to fight it and stuff like that. So overall, I wish it was harder. I wish the rewards were better, scaled with the difficulty, because these rewards will not age well. I think these rewards will be somewhat mediocre within a year, versus I think Labyrinth of Legends rewards kind of hold their value for at least a couple of years. They're not so important now, since like 2019, but 2017, 2018, they were still extremely important. I think this content is not going to be relevant anymore in 2021. So I think Kabam overall has failed to deliver something that everybody expected to be amazing. A sign of the laziness, in my opinion, is the fact that many of the champion fights doubled up. Like we have 2 Iron Man Infinity Wars, 2 Medusas, 2 Havocs, 2 Killmongers, 2 Korgs, 2 Ghosts, 2 Sinisters, 2 Aegons, 2 Things, and there are not too many unique kind of fights. I don't know, man. It feels rushed. It feels like a rushed content. It definitely feels like these champions shouldn't have been doubled up. It also doesn't. Many of the fights don't feel like they were thought through. And all in all, I don't want to sound like a downer, but I'm definitely disappointed. I'm definitely disappointed. I thought it's going to be harder. I thought it's going to be more interesting. I thought it's going to be more challenging. Now I can look back at it and I say honestly that 6.2 and 6.3 were more difficult, were more challenging. This was more expensive. But only because Kabam told me it's time to die because I have hit their defender enough number of times. And that's stupid. And yeah, that's about it. Overall, obviously I'm happy I did it. I'm excited. There were some great moments, some frustrating moments. But all in all, I expected much more from Abyss. With the best way to put it. This piece of content would be fine if it's something we get twice a year, not once in 3 years. And it also felt like something that they have half baked up, semi in rush, rather than something they have worked a year or two on. And it's sad. Sad. I kind of wish they would take it down, take it back, redo it, get rid of the duplicate fights, make it a bit bigger, make it a bit more challenging, get rid of the hit counter and rage timer, give us a regular enrage timer, do some other reworks, update the rewards, and then release it again, because now, yeah, I don't think it's great at all. I think it's all about having enough resources or money and having the right champions. I don't think it measures some sort of skill accurately. I think many of the fights are easy cheese kind of, and I think there are only a couple of fights like really skill intensive. Like every fight should, or most of the fights should be like the massacre fight, the like Luke Cage fight, like the more annoying ones where it's not as much about as having that exact counter that you need, but much more about fighting the way that needs to be fought. But in here, it's some of the fights will be absolute nightmare if you don't have a right counter, and that pretty much goes for majority of the fights. And yeah, I don't know, man, I don't like it. As a large piece of content, it's not a content I would want to go in and test too much, because I don't know, man. It doesn't feel great. It does not. So I don't know. Maybe I change my opinion eventually on it, but right now I'm somewhat bummed, a bit disappointed. Wish it was harder, wish it was better, wish I could see that there's more work that has gone into it, wish there would be no duplicate champs. And yeah, because when Labyrinth of Legends came out, it was new, it was something crazy, it was something wicked, it was something different. Now this is clearly kind of Labyrinth of Legends 1.5. Let's amp up the health pools a bit, let's amp up the global nodes a bit, let's make it a bit bigger, and let's put in stupider enrage timer and stupider boss and see how much money you can make. So yeah, I don't know, man. I didn't enjoy it. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. That's about it from me complaining. Let me know what you guys thought. How you tried it? Will you try it? Why didn't you try it? Or anything else? Just drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Next video on Abyss is gonna be discussing the Fourth Horseman. Why, where, alternatives, so on and so forth. But yeah, that's it for today. See ya.